Hi everyone. Test, okay, here we go. I hope you enjoyed the lunch break. My name is Benedikt and I'm Director of Sales and Marketing at Shikenso. So for me it's always a special thing to return to Singapore because I used to live for 2 years in Singapore while I'm now based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Both cities are great, but like I said, it's great to be here and present today in front of you. So for today, we want to talk about data. But before we do that, let me just share a few words. What is Shikenso about? So at Shikenso, we are on a mission to make esports and gaming transparent for sponsors. Yeah, so what does that mean? You could also maybe describe us in a different way and call us the Google Analytics in esports. Yeah, so we find out where do spectators come from, and also we measure the sponsorship values that result from this. And we provide this kind of data to different types of partners. So we work with teams, brands, and agencies. And last week, I actually made a promise on LinkedIn. You know, I'm very vocal on LinkedIn. And I promised that today we will take a deep dive into numbers. Yeah, we want to look at concrete examples, and I will share that with you. But before we do that, I would like to show you something else. Okay, so we did a bit of research at Shikenso, and we wanted to find out what is the status quo when it comes to media reporting in esports. Yeah, so here are some big headlines of some of the biggest esports events that happened in the past months. Yeah, you probably see, like you recognize most of them, like Blast Paris Major, we have the LCS, the IEM Rio, and so on. Now, when you read these kind of headlines, sometimes they sound good or sometimes they sound bad, yeah? But when we looked, like as a total at these headlines, we noticed one thing. They have one thing in common, which we're gonna see now. And I highlight this for you. So all of these headlines and esports event articles, they report about viewership. Now, is this the right way to measure the success of an event by just looking at the viewership? So for today, I would like to take you on a little tour where we check on two events specifically, and we're gonna pick these two. So we have here on the left the IEM Rio Counter-Strike gaming title. Yeah, and here's reported records peak viewership of 562 peak viewers. And then on the right, we have the LCS Spring. It's League of Legends, which happened in America. And there it said, final, like the LCS Spring 2023 final, draws lowest viewership in league history. Later in the text, it reads 270,000 peak viewers. And now I would like to do like a small experiment with you guys. So let's imagine for like the rest of the session that all we are sponsorship managers working at a global brand. And we have to make an investment decision today where we want to sponsor an event. Okay, and I would like you to raise now the hand if you, just based on this what you're seeing, yeah? Like when you see this here on the right, the IEM Rio, would you invest your money in sponsoring this event? Please raise your hand. Just based on what you see, yeah? Okay? Okay, then let's do this again for the LCS 2023. So I'm standing now here. Who's raising an arm? Okay, that's interesting. Maybe there are some people that can sense that I'm putting up a trap here, yeah? But, okay, that's very interesting. So the vast majority in the audience actually was holding hands up because we were looking at the peak viewers and also the headline gives a good connotation. This event sounds more successful to us. But now, we are still the sponsorship manager, and do we really want to base our $1 million investment on solely that KPI, the total viewers? And obviously, the question is no. We cannot do that, we cannot justify that investment, and we cannot evaluate an event after it was streamed purely on viewership. So today I would like to introduce you to a few other KPIs and metrics to help you understand what's a good event in terms of sponsorship and which could be better. So first off, we have here viewership. Yeah, like in the articles we saw viewership, but then also here, when you are a sponsorship manager, you want to find out like who's watching. First of all, like, okay, what is the reach, but who's watching? So make sure you check on geolocation, yeah, so that's the country distribution for these events. Make sure you check on age and sex as well. This is enormously important, for example, for global brands that want to make sure to match their target audience. Yeah, you have to make sure that you match the right target audience here. So and then, in the media, we more or less cover this here on the left side. Yeah, we have viewership. Sometimes they go as deep as talk about like geo, age, and gender as well. But to make here the right decision and to evaluate the event success, we have to look at other KPIs, which are, like they are even more than this, but for today I picked these important ones. So we have viewership, placements, impressions, size, and duration. And I would like to explain these KPIs to you now by looking at a concrete example. Because what we are looking right now at are KPIs that are tied to a brand, yeah, not like the total event. So when we tracked the LCS Spring, yeah, we have an AI that checks for brand exposure like during the whole stream. And then in this case, it detected the naming sponsor, which is the Grubhub. Yeah, so we have a detection here. And then we measure, for example, the viewership, how many average viewers saw Grubhub during the whole stream. Then how often was any kind of Grubhub sponsorship asset visible? How many people or like how many sets of eyeballs actually saw that? What is the average size of Grab sponsorship assets like during the whole stream? And last but not least, the duration. Okay, let's pull the numbers. Okay, so you see here that this set of numbers looks a little bit different. We have an average of roughly like 17,000 that truly saw this brand. Then we had 40,000 placement, but keep in mind, this is not just this one placement. Now, for this example, we have actually pulled the number for Grubhub in general. Yeah, so Grubhub in general, during the LCS, had 40,000 placements. And then basically placements times the people that watch, you would have resulting the impressions. On average, we had a size, and this is calculated basically like the size on screen compared to the screen size of the spectator was 0.49. Average in seconds, 11 seconds. Okay, so I hope these numbers are clear, or sort of. But now, this was like a concrete example for Grubhub. Let's zoom out again and take a look at all these KPIs. So if you ask me, Benedikt, in your opinion, what's the strongest KPI to measure the success of an esports event? I mean, I think all of them are useful, and actually I have not yet shown you the most important one, because it's more or less a combination of all these metrics, which is the media value. Yeah, so the media value takes into account how many people watched your brand, where did they come from, how often was it visible, how many people actually saw that, what's the average size and the duration of the sponsorship asset. So here my answer to that, so what's the most important or the golden KPI to measure sponsorships in esports? My answer is media value. So now we all got familiar with some of these metrics and KPI, so let's make a comparison. Because we want to find out, like in the beginning I asked you to raise your hand, were we all right or wrong regarding our investment decision? Okay, so let's just extend the scope of the analysis that usually the media does by only looking at viewership, and let's look as well, let's have a look at all the other metrics as well. Okay, so here we have in comparison the IEM Rio 2023 and the LCS Spring 2023. The viewership numbers are already, we know them already. Yeah, we have 562,000 versus 271,000. But when it comes to geolocation, there is also already a significant difference. So the IEM Rio was held in Brazil, and you can see a lot of Central and South America viewership, 35%. Whereas the LCS Spring saw mainly like viewers coming from Europe and North America. This will be later important when we calculate the media value, because we usually calculate media values like with local CPMs. Obviously there is difference when it comes to that. Age-wise and sex-wise, we don't have to go into this because this is pretty similar, but let's take a look at some other metrics here. Placements. We had way more placements when we look at the IAM Rio, and then if you calculate the viewership times the placements, you more or less come to the numbers of the impressions. So these are extremely high, these numbers. Almost, I would say, I would see IAM Rio winning until to this point. Like maybe the geolocation plays a part, but then also here these last two metrics, when we look at them, the size, the standard size of all the tournament sponsors at the IAM Rio was 0.25% compared to the screen size, whereas for the LCS Spring, it was this times 8. Yeah? And this throughout the whole tournament, in addition to, and as well as like a longer duration of all these sponsorship placements, then actually yielded in a higher media value. And that's very surprising. Yeah? So let me just summarize that again. Because we had more viewers from North America and Europe, which we usually calculate with a higher CPM, yeah, if you would do media buying, and because of like the bigger size of all their sponsorship placements and a longer duration, like they were just longer visible during the stream, we see that the LCS Spring actually generated more media value. So like I told you that in the beginning that was more or less like a trick question, like a trap I wanted to set up. But I feel like often, and that's like part of my conclusion, like we judge events too fast based on viewership. While viewership remains like an extremely important KPI, we should also start talking more about where do people come from, like also what's the media value that was generated for sponsors and so on. So if we or I would write these headlines, they would look like this, yeah. And then if we're gonna do this quiz again, okay, you are the brand manager of a global brand and you can invest into the events. I'm sure now all of you would probably more likely invest into the right one, to the LCS Spring. So I hope this presentation made it clear that often evaluating events and sponsorships can be like more complex than just looking at total viewers. Also, I hope you can now, or you got a little bit more familiar with other metrics than viewership. And when it comes to like making the right moves in esports, like I highly suggest like to work transparent with your partners together, like reporting these numbers. And also if you're thinking about like adding analytics to your esports teams, esports events, and so on, please keep in mind that analytics is not just like a finish line exercise. You can also already reach out and check for analytics during the exploration phase and budgeting phase to make sure you are making the right choices and right investments. Okay, now I think we are pretty much done with the presentation, and now I was wondering if you have any questions that I can answer. Okay, we got a question in the back. Also, in the meantime, feel free to connect on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn. I'm very vocal there. Okay, we have someone in the back. Yeah.
Thanks, Benedikt. Really interesting and informative way to think about it. I'd love to know more about how you consider benchmarking. Obviously, that data in and of itself is interesting, but without comparing it to similar entertainment properties, similar sports, something else that's kind of irrelevant, right? So how do you go about benchmarking whether or not that 20.1 was successful? in the context of the other things your brand partner could have spent their money on?
Benchmarking, you mean like benchmarking for one event series, or like benchmarking against traditional sports, or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously as a brand partner, you've got a choice of where you spend your money. How would you consider, in the kind of the media valuation context, how do you consider what is success in that kind of that value?
Yeah, I think it's difficult. Also, like when we came to that conclusion, like the LCS is probably the better investment choice. Also, we have to be very careful. Like it has to be aligned with the goals of your company as well. What's extremely important is that you reach the right audience. This is why I also think like benchmarking different like gaming titles or event series can be quite tricky to some extent. However, as I told you, so if you truly, or you want like an accurate media value, you would even take into consideration the geolocation. Yeah, so if you, and this is why I think the media value is probably like the best indicator for the success through the glasses of a sponsor in general, yeah. But then still you have to find out, okay, are you matching the right people? And often I see even sponsors where, let's say an event has like a lot of viewership from CIS countries, or like it's maybe like a local food delivery company, but they sponsor an event where like maybe 60% of the viewer actually do not come from that country where they deliver. And then when I see these things, I wonder like, are these companies truly aware of that? And maybe they are, but then do you bring it to the table when you basically negotiate these deals? Because all of these deals, of course, they come with conditions and price tags too. Yeah, so I just hope that moving forward, and like a lot of people are asking for sustainability in esports, yeah. But how can we grow or like kickstart off like becoming more sustainable if we don't know what's happening? So I really hope we rely more on data in the future in esports. And there we have another question.
Hi Benedikt, thank you. Ray here. So you mentioned all of these metrics which are post-event metrics. What metrics would you use for, let's say, an esports team running a major tournament for the first time? They have a large following, they have the budget for it. How would you know that this, as a sponsor, is a good investment?
Okay, that's a tough question. But already if you are basically the host and admin of your social media channels, yeah, you should have some kind of idea, like where do the people come from, what's their demographics and so on. When it comes to then like a tournament, I would probably can make like a forecast of how many people are watching and where do they come from. How this will translate into media values, that's going to be a bit tricky. But yeah, I think first off you have to check on, okay, what data do you have? You could potentially screen the market and see like, okay, is there any other competitor or like a similar event that someone was running? So then you can probably put your numbers or your focus based on this. Yeah, I hope it helps, but happy to have a chat later on. Okay, I think then we got all the questions. Thanks again for the attention, and if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me, or also Arvin is here from Frankfurt. Yeah, let's get in touch, let's connect. Thank you.